I got it wrong. If the NFL got it right. It's self-scouting day here on the McShay Show. Listen, you guys poke holes in Mensch and I all year long. Today, the wounds will be self-inflicted. Thank goodness. Thank goodness, Mensch. There are 353 days until the 2026 NFL draft. My man, Mensch, you good?
I'm good, man.
Tucker, play me that beat, please. We are back. Regularly scheduled content here, programming. Mondays and Thursdays. That's where you'll find us during the off season. We're excited to be back, fresh off our trip from LA. Spent a couple days out there afterwards, Mensch. Took a red eye back. 4 kids, one of which
you took the red eye.
Took the red eye home Thursday, landed Friday morning, tried to take a quick nap while the kids are in school, one of which was out of school for the entire week sick. Stepmother-in-law's in town. Like, get the whole thing, right? But we're back doing what we love to do. This is kind of fun, man. Normally, like, I went 17 years of like, yeah, let's come in on Monday, let's review the draft, and then like the door's right there, the highway's right there. We'll see you in August. Now we get to review and take deep dives, and we just had a show meeting. Okay, we just had a show meeting. By the way, the responses, we got over 400 responses to our requests for help us help you, right? Mm-hmm. We said, send us some creative ideas. We're looking to fill the entire summer full of ideas. Mensch and I are already getting started. Like this week, we're getting started on tape for the 2026 class. In July, we're going to roll out all of our position rankings, our grades, our evaluations. We're going to go through all of that. In the meantime, we're doing a lot of reviewing, looking back at this year's draft. We're going to analyze rosters, maybe some of the 3 years, what's gone on in the draft plans. But we're also going to incorporate some Q&As, some show topics that our audience and the people who have been part of the show, friends of the show, as I like to say, have thrown at us. So we appreciate all of that response. We're not ignoring it. We're actually, like, there's meetings now taking place of people like putting it together, trying to condense it, trying to figure out what the best ideas are. And we're going to roll some of that out in the next several weeks as well. The McShay Report, don't forget about it. There's that smile on Mensch's face. It's been a few days since
it's been a little weird.
Yeah, it's been nice. We had a crash course, and we really, we're basically living together for like 10 days out in LA. So I gave him a few days to breathe. I recognize I can be a little bit much, and so it's good to see him smile again. We just had the way too early mock draft. If you haven't read it, just Google the McShay Report. Subscribe. You can subscribe for free. Get half of the content. You can subscribe and chip in, and you can get all the content. But we're going to be rolling out one announcement, Mensch. It's not, what is today? Cinco de Mayo. Happy Cinco de Mayo.
Happy Cinco de Mayo, my man.
Why am I just realizing that at 3 p.m. Eastern time? We just had an announcement.
Because we're old.
Yeah, we are old. When we were back in our Richmond days, I would have been 9 a.m. We were celebrating somehow. It's not, we don't normally get NFL draft announcements on May 5th, right? Did you hear the news, man? 2027 NFL draft on the national lawn.
That's pretty cool, man.
Outside the White House.
Yes.
The National Monument. How about the Commanders and what they're doing from an organizational
it's exciting, man.
Jaden Daniels. We got new ownership. Building a new stadium.
The momentum is insane.
Fans.
Here we
Commanders fans. No, Commanders fans, you got to be fired up, man. Like it is finally coming your way after decades of frustration with Daniel Snyder and that unbelievably poorly run organization. And what a way to celebrate the NFL draft in 2020. Now we got to go back to Connor and Dan, see what Tucker and Eduardo's availability is, everyone in the show. I don't know. Here's my visions. I want to get your initial.
Here we go. It's 355 days away. Let's start planning now.
I'm just thinking. No, it's like 700 days away. 2027.
Oh, that's right.
Yeah. Because now I'm hooked in the draft ends in LA for this show. Like that was an awesome week. Studios were great.
Unbelievable week.
Right. So, and I'll tell you one consistent. I don't care if we got to break through one of the windows because he's already promised he's doing it. Russillo on Saturdays, invading Russillo's. That's going to be our an annual tradition. Day 3 of the draft at Russillo's house. But I got some visions of, like, first of all, the first family of football, the Mannings, the third generation Arch, with the first overall pick in the 2027 NFL draft, Arch Manning, right? With the monument, but I don't know. But what do you think about maybe LA for a few days, hopping on that ringer, calling Bill Simmons, hey, Bill, we get that jet ready, flying out DC, doing the show the first night, flying back, finishing up in LA, finishing at Russillo's house. Thoughts?
You're out of your mind.
I know. All right.
You're out of your mind.
I'm just rolling it out there. 700.
Pick a coast for each draft. That's what I'm asking.
All right, let's get to it. I got it wrong. If the NFL got it right. I came up with
I have no idea who your players are going to be, by the way. I mean, I'm interested to see.
You sent me a text. I copied, pasted it, and sent it on to Tucker so we could build some graphics. I honestly didn't. I think I know one player in your list, so I think it's great.
Right.
We've never done this before. I've actually never. I was I think it was a flight back. And I was trying to think of, like, what can we do that's creative, that's different. And I hadn't gotten all the responses yet. Haven't gone through all those yet. But it was like, we always talk about, like, it's always put through this prism, I guess, is what I'm trying to say. Of, well, I had him as the 90th player, on my board, but he went 36. What a terrible pick. Or I had him as the 30th player on my board. He went 90 something. Someone else made a mistake. And I've talked to our audience about this before. Gary Horton started us in this business, right? Former NFL scout, worked with Bill Belichick and Nick Saban and all those guys with the Browns, and was bounced around different places in the league. And when we got started, he was trying to start basically the 33rd scouting department, and we built it from there. Originally the War Room, then bought out by ESPN, became Scouts Inc. And here Steve and I are screaming into a microphone twice a week. But he always said, like, part of our responsibility, Todd, because I know a lot of people in the league, I know how hard they work. I've been in the league. Part of our responsibility is to kind of share that these are smart men, women who've been involved in sports. Like, they didn't wake up one morning and decide, how can I screw this thing up? And that always stuck with me. And so, like, I don't have all the answers. Even the smartest guys in the league, even the Howie Roseman, is the pinnacle of the business right now, is the GM of the Eagles, 2 Super Bowls under his belt. Even he, like, I can go pick apart his drafts. He ain't perfect. Eric Costa came on. I ain't perfect. Like, no. So I wanted to do this exercise and go through of, instead of like, I think they got it wrong, or why was this player? How about we start with, maybe we got it wrong, and work backwards. Like, if the league got it right, if that player should have been drafted where he was, whether it's way later than we thought or a lot earlier than we thought, let's talk through it. Maybe did we miss something? I even went back and I was watching more tape this morning on a couple of the players not to refresh. Like, I've got pages of notes I've got like a page of notes on every player. I wanted to see with my own eyes now. Okay, the Panthers drafted him. The Saints drafted him. The Dolphins drafted. I wanted to see, okay, how does that fit what they want to do? And I know you've done the same. So I want to get started with players.
I'll say this.
Go ahead.
For years, we've said, well, how good is a player going to be in the league? Well, tell me where he's going to end up.
So here
tell me
we are.
Where he's going to go. Like, that's a big part of this equation and this puzzle. And I don't mean that, is he going to a bad team or is he going to a good team? I'm saying, is he going to a place where he's going to get a chance to play? Is he going to a place where they have something in structure for him to grow and evolve as a player? There's a lot of moving pieces to all of this. We've said for years, is a player going to be good? Tell me where he's going to go.
And my last preface to all of this is the obvious one that everyone's waiting for us to get into is Shedeur Sanders. This is about everybody that's not named Shedeur, okay? I mean,
right.
I feel like we spent the entire week leading up to the entire draft weekend, and I even did a USA Today up to Friday, USA Today interview on the subject on Friday. So, like, now let's get into the nuts and bolts. We all know what happened there, and I've tried to explain, and we tried to prepare people for it. We talked through it, and then everyone did a debrief on it afterwards, and whatever their opinions are, wide ranging from mine to my good friend Mel Kiper's, various opinions, right? But now let's get into the other guys. So, Mitch, why don't you get started? And again, this premise is a player that we either had ranked a lot higher or lower than where they got drafted, and let's talk through it and try to make some sense of it and see why we could be wrong.
The first guy I went with was the 13th overall pick in the draft. That's Kenneth Grant. The Miami Dolphins took the defensive tackle Kenneth Grant from Michigan.
Mm-hmm. It's the smallest.
This is the smallest. Surprised that I went with that player. Or surprised?
No. So we knew he was going to go in the first round, but that high, considering who was still on the board, was a surprise to me, and I know to you as well.
Right. So I didn't see that kind of player on tape. To be honest with you, when I went back and I look at his grade, I felt like I was easy on him because of the potential, that I was betting on the traits. And I think that's, why you would take him. You're betting on the traits. He is a big man who moves well, and he's got a very high ceiling. So we'll get into that in a little bit, but it's the smallest gap in between the ranking and where he went because of how early it is, right? So the earlier the player goes, the smaller. It doesn't have to be a big gap to me. He was my fourth defensive tackle and the 27th best player on my board, is what I'm saying. And he ended up going 13. And that may not seem like a big gap to people, but when you're the second defensive tackle to go and you go in the top 15 of the draft, to me, that's a big difference. So I'm just
every spot in the top,
my pick.
No, every spot in the top 5 or top 10 to 15 feels like 3 to 5 spots later in the draft.
Thank you. So you get it.
And I think particularly because of what was still available.
Right. So that's where I'm going. When I get into my other guys, there'll be a much bigger gap. But for this one, this is one that popped out to me. Okay. But here's why it could go well. The defensive coordinator is Anthony Weaver. Anthony Weaver was drafted by the Ravens. He was a big defensive end coming out of Notre Dame. This guy knows the position. He likes bigger defensive linemen who are versatile. And you look at Kenneth Grant, I think a lot of people think he also coached for the Ravens for a few years, by the way, former defensive line coach. This guy knows what he's doing with defensive linemen. If you're looking for a coordinator who can develop a young, talented defensive lineman, you're going to be hard pressed to find a guy better at it than Anthony Weaver, I think. So anyways, he's going to be able to, people might look at Kenneth Grant's size and say he's a nose tackle. Well, they took up 2 other guys later on in this draft that I think are nose tackles. They took Jordan Phillips in the 5th round, and they took Zeke Biggers in the 7th round. He could play outside, inside in that scheme again, a guy that they're going to like because of the versatility. I think Kenneth Grant's going to play outside. I think he's going to be a defensive end in their base 3-man fronts, and then he's going to be a defensive tackle in their 4-man fronts. And I think
when you say outside, you still mean
defensive line.
Tackle. Yeah.
Right. Tackle to tackle. When I say is a 4-eye, when I'm saying outside defensive lineman and a base 3-man front, that's what 4-eye technique, which means that he lines up over the inside shoulder of the offensive tackle. Yep. He's going to live in these 2 spots. He's going to live on the outside shoulder of the guard and the inside shoulder of the tackle. I think he's great in that position because he has that size. Yes, you think 340 plus pounds, this guy's just going to play over the center and be that old school Vince Wilfork nose tackle. That's not really his game. I think he's a little bit better at getting off blocks, being athletic, being quick, getting into the backfield. I think he's more of a guy that you want to play in that B gap. And I think he could be perfect at that. And that's how they'll use him. So if I'm looking at their scheme and their fit, now my only problem is I'll say this. Pittsburgh got a player. They do a lot of similar things Pittsburgh does. And they got Derek Harmon at 21, who I think is a better player. So that sticks out in my mind. But if we're staying positive and we're saying why this could work and why it could be wrong, and I have to acknowledge that, it's a great landing spot for him in terms of scheme and a coordinator who knows how to use him.
Yeah. I'm just looking at their defensive line. I mean, they were 27th in sacks last year, right? But 12th in pressures. If you wanted to draft for pass rush, you're drafting Harmon,
right? And they lost Calais Campbell. I think Calais Campbell's a different build. Calais Campbell's about 290, 295.
Yes.
Granted. But I think that when you look, don't get caught up on the weight. when you look at their style of play, and again, Kenneth Grant has a long way to go before we start talking about him in the same breath as Calais Campbell. But if you're looking at that kind of role, the role they want him to play in the scheme, I think it's more Calais Campbell than it is a nose.
Yeah. I mean, that'll be interesting because that wasn't my initial thought.
And he has the tools, man. Listen, we've said this all along. He has the tools. If you can get the best out of him, that looks like a great pick. But 13 for a guy that's inconsistent on tape is a little scary for me.
Yeah, I think that surprised people, that pick, regardless. It was just a little higher than the expectation. Right. I'm gonna just play the hits right off the top. I think everyone was well aware. Everyone who followed the show was well aware that Tetairoa McMillan was not my favorite player in this draft.
Yeah, that was the most obvious, right?
Yeah, I had him ranked 50th, and I did it. I call that the you can have him grade. I had to be, and I say that, but like I want to make it perfectly clear. I see the talent.
You have to be good to get the you can have him grade, because a you can have him grade, that's just to be, just describe it, explain it a little bit, is if I put him at 50, I know I'm not getting him. So that's the you can have him, because he's long gone at that point.
Right. And when I mocked him, I mocked him. I forget the final mock draft. By the way, I wound up getting 10 right on the mock draft and like back.
Yeah, it was some late ones. There's some late ones. Yeah, it was great.
I was sneaking around the chicken coop on that thing.
Yeah.
Anyway, I know, very, very much so. But yeah, I think the lowest I mocked him towards the end was at 12 to Dallas, and that's where he would have gone had Carolina not taken him at 8. So obviously a massive discrepancy. You're talking about 20 something spots. I'm talking about 42, right? So let's just get it out of the way. I don't think anyone who's taking the time to watch the show in the offseason needs me to explain the 6'4", the 219, the length, the acrobatic catches you see on tape. Like, this guy has the ability to go up and make special plays down the field. I don't trust him long term is the reason why I've got him at 50. And I've seen all the backlash, and people think that I'm in Jed Fish's pocket or I'm in this person's pocket, or I hear the stories. I hear about the practice habits and practicing harder with scouts there and barely practicing when they're not. And there's just a lot of stuff there. But here's the deal. If he decides to totally check in and go maximize his tools, yeah, good pick. And so that's what Carolina and Dan Morgan's counting on. And I trust that. And this is my day to say, I was wrong if Dan Morgan was right. And I'm not like, by all means, Dan Morgan could be right. How could it work? Well, I'll tell you how it could work. And it's not hard. Like, it doesn't take a super sleuth to figure it out. 62 pass catchers in the league had more receiving yards than Carolina's top receiver last year, Adam Thielen, who had 615 receiving yards. The group got better with Xavier Legette and Jalen Coker as the season progressed. And it was a direct reflection of the quarterback play improved with Bryce Young. They're in 11. Here's how it will work. You got a smaller quarterback that probably doesn't see the field the way, some other quarterbacks who are 6'3", 6'4", 6'5" do. A quarterback who very much relies on timing, throwing the ball to spots, touch, putting the ball up there for receivers. A quarterback who actually didn't have the weapons that some of the quarterbacks before him at Alabama did, but still always had good weapons and was very good at getting the ball out on time and leading receivers. And now he's got big catch radius guys. You've got Tet McMillan in his size. You've got Xavier Legette, who's not as tall, 6'1", but he's 227, physical receiver. You got Adam Thielen, who's a veteran route runner, 6'1", over 200 pounds, physical receiver. And then you got Jalen Coker, who's come on and coming out of Holy Cross, right? Yeah, the Holy Cross, another 6'1", 213. So they got a bunch. They don't have a lot of like quick separators. And they don't have a lot of burners, but they got a lot of big catch radius guys, strong after the catch, right?
They drafted a couple talented tight ends over the last 2 years, too. They got Sanders out of Texas and Mitchell Evans out of Notre Dame this year. I mean, they've gotten some big bodies who can make plays.
Right. So a lot, and I think the premise is going to be a lot of, get the ball West Coast, get the ball out, quick catch, physical run after catch, those kind of guys. And then when we take our shots, it's 50-50 balls. Our guys are bigger and stronger, more physical than yours, and go get contesteds. And Carolina was in 11 personnel 72% of the time last year. So now we've got 3 of the big bodies on the field.
Mm-hmm.
And some rotation of Tetairoa, McMillan, Xavier Legette, Adam Thielen, and Jalen Coker.
Right.
So that's how it will work.
Looks great on paper.
It does. And they got a weapon for their quarterback. But as is the case with all of these other situations, I asked myself the question, maybe if I didn't get it wrong, who could they have had? Do you know what I mean?
Right.
Who could they have had? And
so you went back and saw who was, yep, go ahead.
And I'm looking at, why not a Colston Loveland? If you're looking for a big receiving target, put him in the slot. Why not a Mykel Williams or a Jalen Walker, who I get it, went 15. So to me, I'm always going to be going back into, I'm not doing this against other receivers in the class. It wasn't a great class. It's not like and I liked Matthew Golden more, and I liked Emeka Ibuka more. I get for what they're trying to do. I'm cool with the wide receiver group. And like, if that's their guy, I'm cool with that. It's what else this organization needed, That to me is what I'm always going to go off of here. And I look at, okay. And then also, we always talk about the combo picks, and we're always going to have to, when we go back a year from now or 2 years from now, it was Nick Scorton at the 19th pick in the second round, right? And again, a player I'm not super, super high on, but when you look at Nick Scorton and Tetairoa McMillan, it could have been Mykel Williams or Jalen Walker in the first. And then you get to Carolina. Where's Carolina? They traded back, right? Yeah, they traded back to get Scorton. But they could have traded back and taken another receiver at that point, Trey Harris. Would you rather have Mykel Williams or Jalen Walker and Trey Harris? Or would you rather have Tetairoa McMillan and Nick Scorton? I would have gone your way. I would have gone your way. I would have too, but again, they believe in Tetairoa McMillan. They believe in the character. They believe in that this guy is going to show up in the NFL and he's ready to go. And if that's the case, then they'll wind up being right. All right, who do you get next?
The 75th overall pick in this draft, Nick Martin, Oklahoma State, the inside linebacker.
That caught my eye.
The 49ers drafted him. Mm-hmm. I had someone from the league tell me at the Senior Bowl, keep an eye on this kid. He's really good. And to be honest with you, I loved his tape. He had 140 tackles and 83 solo tackles in 2023. But this is what the deal for me, and this is a good lesson. There's a couple, Pat Bryant, the receiver from Illinois. This is another lesson for me. If you love a player, if you love the tape, stick to your guns, right? Because I really did like Nick Martin. But he's 5'11", 221, and he missed most of last year with a knee injury. And I'm thinking to myself, who's going to take a chance on an undersized linebacker who had some problems staying healthy? And you know who took the chance? San Francisco. And here's why this could really work. Because if you're a San Francisco fan, you know that Dre Greenlaw was a guy that went in the 5th round, I believe. A little undersized. Weight-wise, he was fine, but he was sub 6 foot. Both these guys, when you watch their tape, Greenlaw when he came out of Arkansas, Martin out of Oklahoma State, speed. It is speed on tape. Relentless. Just chasing down running backs. Are they good at getting off blocks? Nope. They're not great. That's not their strength. But they play fast. And when San Francisco drafted Dre Greenlaw, they got an immediate starter. He started 11 games that first year. I think 12 or 13 games the next year, right next to Fred Warner. When you got Fred Warner, you can put a lot of guys next to him, and they're going to look good because Fred Warner's so good. But you look at that. He started 22 of the first 29 games he played. In 2019, the 49ers gave up the second fewest yards per game in the league. The next year was the fifth fewest yards per game in the league. So they took a rookie who's a fifth-round draft pick, inserted him at linebacker, and we're off and running. Now, I get it. They're loaded everywhere else, man. And they're not that roster that they were then. But you remember who the defense coordinator was for them in 2019? Robert Saleh. Guess who's back?
Yeah.
Guess who's back down, baby?
Yeah.
Guess who knows exactly how to coach linebackers, how to use them in a scheme, how to develop them. I look at that pick and I feel like I'm going to be kicking myself. This is the one where you look, you talked about it before. I don't have all the answers. I'm trying to I look at these picks and I say to myself, what are the lessons that I can learn here? And I believe that this one might be, if he works out. Now he's had some the Greenlaw stuff is going to be very similar to this kid. It's going to be very interesting because Greenlaw and Martin, whether or not they're able to stay healthy, that was Greenlaw's falling out, is he has not been able to stay healthy. And unfortunately, I believe he just suffered another serious injury last week. So they'll have to stay healthy. But this is one that I think I'll look back and say, take chances on guys who aren't height, weight, speed guys if their production and tape is good enough.
Yeah. All good points. And I like that. Let's learn. Let's learn. And maybe the pick doesn't work out, but there's still a lesson to learn from it, right?
Right. Yeah.
And I tried to do that more this year than ever before. And I'll get to a player in a little bit here that I did that on, and I'm comfortable bringing it up today, and we'll see how it all plays out. I'm going to kick over to the Saints.
I got a Saints player.
Okay.
Go ahead.
Well, I want to make this perfect. There are two players that I was just way off compared to their board. Okay. But I also want to make it perfectly clear. This ain't a Saints thing, man. I have a lot of respect for Mickey Loomis, that organization. I also absolutely love Tyler Shuck and love the fact that they had the onions to hang there at 40 and wait for their guy to get there.
First onions of the 2026 draft cycle.
Exactly. So with all that said, I just wasn't a Kelvin Banks guy like some other people. And when I say some other people, I mean a lot of people in the league. And I'm okay with that. And it wasn't I'm not going with chalk here, like the Georgia game. He got exposed. It wasn't good, but it wasn't as bad as people this urban lore of this legend of the Georgia game. It wasn't great. It wasn't good, but it wasn't devastating when I went back and studied it for a third time at the end. I think there's work that he has to do. I just, the off balance stuff. I just don't know. Top heavy, off balance, but I also see the athleticism. I see the quickness. I see potential there, and that's what they're betting on. But for the Saints, where the Saints were smart was they got out ahead. Unlike the combo pick I just talked about with the Carolina, Tetairoa, McMillan, Nick Scorton, could have been Jaylin Walker, Michael Williams, and Trey Harris. There ain't no combo pick here, bud. They knew the offensive tackles were going to go. They had the right information, so they took him at 9, and I'm cool with that. And you look at their depth chart too, I don't know where he's going to play. Fuaga played at left tackle and held up pretty well last year. Can they kick him to right? Is Kelvin ready? That's my question. I do like the fact that maybe it's right tackle, because people who tend to lean my side on Kelvin Banks think maybe he's better off at right tackle or guard, maybe early in his career and let him develop, right? If they truly believe in him, all right, left tackle for you, Fuaga goes to right tackle, and we're off. And Trevor Penning, remember, they didn't pick up the 5th-year option. So it makes a lot of football sense because there is versatility. And if you got to play Fuaga back at left tackle, and if he's not ready at tackle, you play Penning for one more year, kick him inside to guard, then kick. So it gives them versatility and flexibility up front. So I understand that. So that, and I also understand there wasn't another tackle in round 2. So that's where maybe I just didn't rank the tackles as high in general, but it was more so I liked, and Mbow was gone. Will Campbell was gone. Like the run was there. So it was just a big gap from where I had him at 35 overall to 9. And but the bigger one, and this one's going to be on me. Their 71st, I think, we'll see. Their 71st overall pick, their 3rd round pick, Vernon Broughton. I had as 214 in the draft.
Huh.
I looked at your rankings. You had him a lot higher. I had 143 difference. I think there's going to be
you
a
saw mine? I want to know what I had.
I think you had him like one.
I was pretty sure I had him higher.
You had him a lot higher. I don't know how I saw yours, but I saw yours somewhere. Oh, I was scrolling through through ESPN.com where you handled all the draft tracker stuff, and it showed it. That's where I saw it.
Yeah, I had him 132. So I was still low on him. Yeah.
I don't think I did a good enough job with the later round guys of circling back this year because we got an October 22nd start and we were starting a show. And I think if they weren't in the top like 200, I wasn't circling back like I would have in most years. And I hope I would have. And I went back and watched more tape today. I like his upside more than I remember. I love the 6'5", 311, 35-inch arms. Didn't work out at the combine. He's quick and flashes. Like there's some plays where he stands guys up, goes and makes
He's
the
up
play.
and down, but the highlights are impressive, right?
The highlights are impressive, but there's also a lot of like when you're studying through the reel of the key plays where he'll get in the backfield and it's the Titanic trying to turn on, leaving his feet. So like he's not there yet, but also I had to remind myself, and I'll remind Saints fans, like this is a guy that played behind 2 NFL defensive tackles and no one else was getting a lot of play. And so this year was a real like fast learning curve for the Texas defensive tackles, right? And so I think that they were drafted accordingly, to be quite honest. Like Alfred Collins and Vernon Broughton were drafted with there's more potential here. They only got 1 season of game experience, and so I think that absolutely factored in when you look at what they were playing behind and 2 NFL guys. So I'll be interested to see the Saints draft because I'm studying very closely Tyler Shuck, and I can't wait to see how that plays out. We'll talk about that later as we go through all the review stuff. But those 2 players in particular, I had very different grades on compared to where they went.
Yeah, it's going to be a Saints pod, baby. I didn't even send you this pick in the initial list that I sent you, but how could I not talk about Devin, Neal, the running back from Kansas that the Saints took with the 184th pick in the 6th round, who I had ranked at 101.
I'm glad we're bringing balance here.
I took him out of the top 100 because I knew he wasn't going to go there, but I really wanted him in there, man. I feel like he's that good. Ended up going 184, so the league spoke. But I'll say this, man. Look at Kellen. Look what Kellen Moore. First of all, let's start with Alvin Kamara. Can we get him some help, please? I think he led the team in targets, 248 carries. I think the next guy was Jamal Williams with 48 carries. He's missed at least a game every year since his rookie season. Banged up. Let's get him some help. We need to get him some help, especially because I'll tell you right now, Kellen Moore wants to run the damn football, man. Look at where he's been. Yes. Philadelphia last year this is regular season, so don't start yapping at me about playoff carries and all that junk. Regular season, the Eagles led the league by far in carries. He went to the Chargers for a year. He had Justin Herbert. The running game wasn't what it was. They just aired it out. I think they were in the 20s. That is the only other time in his career as an offense coordinator that he hasn't been in the top half of the league, and usually a lot earlier than that in carries. His teams have been. And you look at the 2022, I didn't word that well. I hope everyone gets it. And you look at 2022 Cowboys, you look at the 2021 Cowboys, those offenses, they went 12-5 both those years. They ran the ball. And I think he's looking to do something similar to what he had there when he had Zeke, because you don't have Saquon. Look, Kamara is awesome. He's not built like Saquon. He can't do the workload like Saquon can. He's shown that. His body's not going to hold up. He's tough, and you want to get him as many touches as you can possibly can, but I think he's better off if you manage his workload long term. So now you do need a number 2 back, and I think he wants to do what he did with Zeke Elliott and Tony Pollard when he was at Dallas, when it was 1A and 1B, and look at the rest of that depth chart. I mean, who's that running back? To me, it's going to be Devin Neal. It's not Kendrick Miller. It's not Clyde Edwards-Helaire, who hasn't, really panned out since he got drafted, and who I love coming out of LSU, but just hasn't turned out to be the player that we thought he was going to be. Marcus Yarns, I love that as a free agent signing, the kid from Delaware who flashed at the Senior Bowl and flashes on tape. I love all that. Devin Neal is going to get some carries, man. They need him to get some carries. If Kellen Moore especially look at their situation at quarterback, they need to run the ball. They need to take pressure off Alvin Kamara. And Kellen Moore does a nice job. They do a lot of zone concepts in their run game, inside zone, outside zone, but they mix in power. They mix in counter. And Devin Neal is an experienced running back coming out of college. They can do all of that for you. He can help you out in the passing game. He's scheme versatile in terms of the way he runs. He's big enough to carry some of the workload. I think that they get this kid in the 6th round, and we're going to look back on it and say halfway through the season and be like, he is playing meaningful snaps for them. He is producing for them. And how in the world did he last that long?
Yeah. I'm a Neal fan as well, but not as big a Neal fan as you were. I stole Omari and Hampton from you. You stole Devin Neal from me.
That is sort of true, but it's just a great landing spot for him. It's a great landing spot.
It's a great landing spot.
The one downfall would be is that if the passing game, right?
Go ahead.
If they start seeing a lot of heavy boxes, it's going to be tough. It's going to be tough sledding in some of those situations. But long term, I mean, we're talking the 4-year rookie contract.
And pass protection, you're talking about, right?
No, I think he's going to be all right in pass protection. I think there's a lot of guys who come out. Listen, for every Travion Henderson, there's 100 guys who need to work on their pass block, and we can agree on that, right? Yes. I mean, Travion Henderson out of Ohio State was the best by far. Devin Neal isn't great, but I think he can get there. He's willing. He's big. You work on his technique a little bit, he'll be all right. He's not. I wouldn't rely on him week 1, but I think he'll get there.
All right, I'm going to switch over Jaylin Noel. No secret, one of my favorite players in this draft. I just don't. I didn't care. I knew he wasn't going at 30 where I put him. I knew he wasn't going to be the 3rd best receiver taken. I did think he was going to go late 2nd. He went pick 79. I had him at 30. He was the 11th receiver taken. I had him as the 3rd.
Yeah.
Now, I can sit here and tell you he ran a 4.39. He had a 41.5-inch vertical jump, an 11.2 broad jump, and 23 reps on the bench press.
But you're not going to do it.
I can tell you that he's unbelievably crisp and savvy getting in and out of routes. I can tell you that he's explosive and he can open things up for this offense. I can tell you all those things. I can tell you that he's a starting slot right away.
But you won't.
And move over Christian Kirk. Here comes Noel. But why did he fall to 79? Well, he fell to 79. And I've shared it before, and I try to be balanced on all of it. But I was willing to not overlook, but I just think it's going to work. Okay. But to be fair, why does he fall to 79? Well, the league spoke, as you said, and the league said, yeah, well, we see all that explosiveness, but we see a smaller, at best, number 3 slot receiver who has a very small catch radius, short arms, 29.5-inch arm length, doesn't make a ton of catches where he's going up and getting it, making unbelievable adjustments, all that stuff. Muffed 5
He showed he could do that a little bit, though. He showed he could do that a little bit.
But I'm saying not a ton of it. 5 muffed punts, had some bad drops in some moments. I think it was more like focus, that kind of stuff, but we'll see. Yeah, those are the reasons. Short arms, small catch radius, had some drops, 5 muff punts. You add all those things up and you're looking at a smaller catch radius guy who, yes, is explosive, but I can't count in the first 2 rounds. I want to get someone I believe is going to be a starter. And I'd like to draft my slot starter eventually, if that's what he is, in the 3rd. And they got Jaden Higgins. But what I love is the fit. Like Tank Dell, unfortunately, it's MCL, PCL, ACL, and dislocated kneecap. Like devastating, right? They had Nico Collins miss 5 games with a hamstring last year. Stephon Diggs only played 8 games before tearing his ACL and now is in New England. Okay. So there's a lot of question marks with a quarterback who now is going into his 3rd year. The window is getting smaller, not on CJ Stroud and this organization's chances of winning. It's getting shorter on his rookie salary cap implications.
That rookie money,
contract. Yeah. So we're like, we got to do it now. We got to do it quickly. And so they bring in Jaden Higgins in the 2nd and Jaylin Noel in the 3rd. And I probably, if you had to ask Nick Caserio, he probably was shocked that Noel was still sitting there in the 3rd. I think eventually he's going to wind up being the starter and take over that role for Christian Kirk. But right now you got Kirk and Nico Collins and Jaden Higgins and John Mechie and Jaylin Noel. And so now you've got you got 5 receivers that should make impacts after everything that fell apart a year ago.
Can we talk about the larger conversation we've kind of had about slot receivers and I agree with you on this, that they are starters now, that your number 3 receiver is a starter. And maybe teams aren't seeing, Noel as a number 3 receiver as a rookie, but do you think that maybe the league doesn't see it the way we do yet, that they're not ready to value a number 3 receiver as a starter yet?
I think that's absolutely the case. And you hear, like, I have really fun conversations with people in the league. It's like, yeah, we kind of speak out of both sides of the nickel is the starter now. We don't have a Will, a Sam, a Mike linebacker. It's 2 off-ball linebackers and a nickel. And the wide receiver is a starter now. We don't have a fullback. We're not 22 person. But it's still the nickel. It's still the slot,
Right. They still want to pay him like the nickel and the slot. Right.
They still want to pay him. So yeah, I do. I'm trying to pull this up. Hold on one second. I want to pull it by position.
Because I feel like it hurt Jaylin Lane too, the Virginia Tech kid who's undersized slot receiver. He's got some really nice tape, explosive. He went a little later. He went late in the 4th. I thought he might have gone earlier in the 4th, maybe even late in the 3rd.
But you look at like the slot receivers in the league, it's like Khalil Shakir and even like Demario Douglas. I know that's not a good group, but Zay Flowers, Jerry Jeudy. I'm just going down the list here. Christian Kirk, as we just mentioned.
Elijah Moore.
Travis Hunter now for Jacksonville. Elijah Moore. There's just Jacoby Myers, Ladd McConkey. Like Wandale Robinson, CD Lamb, Devontae Smith, Deebo Samuel. Okay. Jaden Reed. There's just a lot of damn good, productive slot receivers in the league. I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know what the answer is there. It'll be interesting to see if that evolves, if that catches up to what we're thinking, or if we're just off on that market.
Smith and Jigbo, like So I don't know. All right, next for you.
I am going with Cameron Williams, the offensive tackle out of Texas, and this is an interesting one for me. He was picked 207. The Eagles take him. I had him ranked at 113. So 113, listen, that's outside of my top 100. I think this kid's a early day 3 pick. Let's just be clear about that.
And what pick did he go again?
He went 207.
Yeah.
So why did he go late?
Yeah.
Why did he go late? Honestly, the tape wasn't that good. I mean, he was Jack
Sawyer.
I was going
to say, I don't feel like you liked him that much.
Well, I had him at 113, so I thought he was. At one point, I had a 3rd round grade on him. Early on in the process, I thought he had a chance to go real early. Going into the season, the word was that this is a talented kid that's going to blow up, but he only had 1 start in 2023. So we didn't know much about him other than he is talented. He flashed a little bit the year before. And this was going to be the year that they're going to have the two talented offensive tackles, much like LSU. Coming into the year, it was LSU's offensive tackles and Texas's offensive tackles were the two tandems. So if you watched the Ohio State game, you saw the strip sack of Ohio State versus Texas. Jack Sawyer beat Cameron Williams. He beat him clean, man.
Yep.
And Cameron Williams had some tough times in the Georgia games. And listen, he's an inconsistent player, but the tools are there. And not only that, he played hurt the entire season. I mean, he was hurt the entire season. He had to go through surgery after the season. He spoke about it at the combine where his heel was locking up. And I just, someone's going to bet on this kid's traits. 34.5-inch arms, moves pretty good on tape, inexperienced, not super young, but 21. I thought someone was going to take a chance on the tools early on day 3. And what happens is the Eagles get him at pick 207. And why is that significant? Because the Eagles offensive line coach is the best in the universe. I mean, he is outrageous. I'm just going to read this. His name's Jeff Stoutland. Yep. He's led 7 players to 26 Pro Bowls. Jeez. In 2018, he went down to Tampa I think the story is right. I hope I get this right. He went down to Tampa to watch this rugby player from Australia work out. Yep. And had never played football. Yeah. And went back, was like, yeah, let's take it. I see some things. Let's draft him. So the Eagles draft Jordan Mailata in the 7th round of 2018. By 2020, he's a starter. He's been their starting tackle since 2020. That's how good this guy is. Yes. And look at their offensive line group. They don't need Cameron Williams. They don't need him to play today. They don't need him to play tomorrow. If they can hide him in a roster spot and then get to work with this kid who hasn't seen a lot of snaps, and then, Landon Johnson is aging. Who knows what's happening contract-wise in a year or two, what they have to do in terms of managing their cap.
I love it.
Dude, it's just a great Howie Roseman pick. You're getting a kid with great traits who had a down year probably because he was hurt, and there's not a lot of tape on him because he's inexperienced. But and here's the other thing that I know. I know they took 3 off. They took Miles Hinton too, by the way, the kid from Michigan, who we kind of liked on tape. Right? And Drew Kendall, the Boston College kid, who we didn't maybe like as much, but we'd heard a lot of buzz about, like, this kid can maybe play. If they drafted an offensive lineman, they walked down the hallway to his office and said, take a look at this kid. What do you think? And if he told them there's something to work with, my God, there's something to work with. Like, he's that good of an offensive line coach. I just look at who took him, and I'm saying to myself, man, I think this is going to be a guy where we look back, I feel good about that ranking. That I feel good about a player that needed to develop, but could end up being a starter, and if not, a swing tackle.
But it's wild. And I won't name any other organizations, even like to throw it out. But like, it is wild, the conversation we'd be having about him if it was another organization.
Right. It's a
I'm not
lot
saying
about the
every
landing
other
spot.
organization. I'm saying there's a hand where it's like, I don't know if we're ever going to see him.
Right.
You know what I mean? Like,
should have gone back to school, man.
How about Bradyn Swinson? I feel like the draft was happening fast. We're on Russillo's couch. He's talking about he's got short shorts on and making Aaron Hernandez jokes and all sorts of stuff that like is right on the verge, the edge. And I just feel like we didn't dig into this. I had him ranked 78, bro.
Yeah.
I get it. He
right now. I was close.
He went pick 146, the LSU edge. The New England Patriots took it. It's kind of like your deal, man. It's not to the extreme, but you're telling me that Mike Vrabel isn't going to get the most out of this guy? Here's the knock. Here's why. There's always the why. Why did Bradyn Swinson? So
I had him 82, just so you know. Go ahead.
So like same neighborhood, 78, 82, almost identical, actually.
That's weird.
Yeah, it is a little. He went 146, almost twice the number of where we had him ranked. And like, I thought worst case was 4th round for this guy. Worst case, right? And even talking to scouts, like a lot of 3rd round grades. But worst case 4th. He went in the 5th. 8 picks into the 5th round. He was the 22nd edge defender taken. I had
You
him
had
as the-
eight. You had
Go ahead.
87 correct of the top 100, right?
Yes.
So think of that. Your hit
It was
rate
either
was
86 or 87. Somebody said 86.
We'll say 87 because we're being nice. So
Okay.
so you had hit on 87% of your top 100. This was one of the 13.
Yeah, and
that
I'm
didn't.
cool if it's like 110, 115, 120.
Right.
146 is like,
What's happening?
I've got a
here?
red flag. So now we're
Right.
talking about it. So why didn't he? Why didn't he go? Because the Patriots also passed on him 2 or 3 times too. You know? Negatives. DPR only. Designated pass rusher only. Not overly stout and all that. 1 year, two stops, really 1 year breakout with the sacks. Okay. I'm not going to go through all the numbers. I don't want to make this over an hour show today. This is the off season now. There were reports that he ran like a 4.68 or something, but then it came out he really ran a 4.80. And that's a scary
I still have the
number.
4.68. I still have the 4.68 time on him. Yeah.
The league didn't. So
Right.
you're asking what when the league spoke, and that's the 56th percentile of edges, and he's not one of the bigger ones, okay? But then also like the 3-cone that he ran at the combine, the shuttle that he ran the combine, they weren't terrible numbers. But when you're talking about a DPR, designated pass rusher, you want that guy to be like, like Jaylin Walker, like, Micah Parsons. Obviously, those are the highest level. But you want guys that have like the traits that pop, right? And his didn't. So those are the reasons why. But I look at him at 6'3" and a half, essentially 255, and I look at the place he's in, and all of a sudden I'm like, well, for him, it's probably better off that he went in the 5th to New England than maybe some other spots, right? And again, he has time to develop. Like they get Harold Landry, he'll learn behind. They get Keon White. It's not a great group, but I'm just saying, like, he is best suited to play 15, 20 snaps, some obvious passing downs, develop, don't get rushed in, make sure we're working on the consistency, and Vrabel's there like every day in practice. Have you ever been to, I had the privilege of going to Ohio State practices, several of them years ago when Urban was there. I was like, I would have loved if I had my Apple Watch on to feel my heart or see my heart rate, beats per minute, watching Vrabel coach defensive linemen, man. Like, it is intense. And I'm not saying, he's a head coach now. I'm not saying but like, he is going to work that, he's going to squeeze all the juice out of this cat. And I'm excited to see that. Anyone else for you?
No, I didn't make any other mistakes.
I know you did. I know
I got everything. I got everything else right.
One more I was surprised, and I just want to throw it out there. You and I both watched tape on him. That's why I wanted to kind of bring it up last. I went back. Marcus Mbow.
Mm-hmm. This was an interesting one.
I had him ranked 63rd. He went 154, Mensch. That's almost 100 spots. I went back. I sent some text. It wasn't a medical thing. He had the broken leg in 2023. Remember, we watched. It was interesting. So, Mensch and I are watching him in Mobile. I think we're actually watching. We're kind of watching a couple tackles, but also watching Texas A&M's defensive front. We're watching Scorton and the Shamars and all of that. And we watched an early. Was it Oregon? This is just off the top of my head. I want to. Or maybe we watched Connerly. We watched a game early in the season. I can pull it up. And he was really struggling. And we were surprised.
Yeah, wasn't the field wet?
The field was wet. He was losing his ground. But it turns out, right?
It was Oregon. It was Oregon.
It was Oregon. I thought it was Oregon.
Mm-hmm.
It was a wet field. It looked like he didn't trust his footing, it looked like. What I didn't, because I was watching the tape before I did the background and all that stuff. This is back in January. What I didn't realize was he was coming off a broken leg the year before. Okay. And talking to scouts, like, yeah, the tape early wasn't as good as the tape late. And I was like, I know. I remember asking this question. he was still recovering, like, and gaining confidence and trust in his leg, and still was recovering. But as the season went on and we started watching the tape, like we watched against like Ohio, we watched some physical, because let me take a step back. Very athletic, great range, gets out on poles, and really good in zone blocking scheme. But the questions were always, is he strong enough? Is he physical at the point of attack? He's going to be in a zone blocking scheme, but does he? And he's got those short 32-inch arms. And so while he wants to play left tackle and is adamant he's going to, he's probably going to have to kick in the guard. And so now he's going up against grown-ass men, 310, 330, not 280, not Jack Sawyer and Tui Molalau. Okay? He's going up against, so that's why he falls. But I loved his tape late. And I saw a different player. And I like this pick. I look at, this is, the intriguing part for me is for the New York, it's for the New York Giants, right? The intriguing part for me is, and I remember you and I both talking about it, and I don't remember if you agreed with me or not. You probably did. You probably got the idea in my head. But I remember saying with Marcus Mbow, who was a 5th round pick, right? 5th round pick. I remember saying, us talking about, man, he'd be good at center.
Yes.
He'd be good at center.
It seems like he's built to play that position.
Now they've got John Michael Schmitz. I don't know the contract, 2nd round pick 2023. I don't know what the future is there. But my point is, whether it's a tackle, guard, it's probably not a tackle, guard or center.
Yeah.
It gives them some versatility, and I think that they nailed it. But what's my lesson here? 32-inch arms, not physical enough. An undersized guy who's going to kick inside, you better be sure about the center part, because if not, we may have a guy who, moves really well, but might get his ass handed to him inside.
Yeah. You know was something that was interesting to me is when I watched him on tape, he has some unusual pass sets that not a lot of guys use at tackle, where he almost attacks and then steps back. It's almost like a head fake, and he does these kind of different pass sets. And to me, there was even a coach at the Senior Bowl after a one-on-one rep, and he won the rep, and he kind of jumped out at the guy and then kind of backpedaled. And the coach on the defensive line said, "No one sets like that, man. Like, that's just not a thing. You don't do that." And then they blew the whistle, and I remember thinking to myself, "Man, is that going to scare away some teams? It's just so unusual." And then it's funny how things work. I'm on X one day, and Joe Thomas releases a video of all the different pass sets he had in the league. And I was like, man, there's a lot of different ways to do it. And it was good for me to see, because he had mixed up all these different sets that he had used. And Mbow was good about it. He was good about how he used it and mixed it in and all that stuff. So it was a good learning experience for me of, coaches coach it differently, players use it differently, and all of those things. And if it works, it works. But at the end of the day, I think you're right. It's going to be that length. It's going to be that position fit and how physical he is.
This is fun, man.
Yeah, it was good.
Fun. Yeah. A little self-assessment, self-inflicted wounds. Only time, but it's fun to do.
We each only made 4 mistakes. It's great.
I think I made 6. McMillan, Kelvin, I didn't even get to Tyler Booker, Vernon, Broughton, Jaylin, Noel, Bradyn, Swinson, Marcus Mbow.
Yeah.
So there's my. This is fun. We got a bunch coming up. We're back on Thursdays, Mondays and Thursdays in the off season. Check out the McShay report. We got a lot. We had meetings today. We got between 400 and 600 different responses and questions and things to do in the off season. We're actually spending time consolidating it, going through and truly trying to provide for you guys in our audience what you're asking for this off season. We're also on the back end starting to grind tape now. 2026 draft, the prospects, every position, and we're going to roll out a whole series in July, and then in August, I'm coming back. I'm going to. I was thinking about this name. Stew on this, Mensch, before we go.
Oh boy.
What was it?
Did you run this by Marissa first? I hope.
I did, and she actually she gave me one of those half-ass chuckles, and I'm worried I'm going to forget it now. Whereas yeah, that's fine, that'll work. rolling your
Yeah.
eyes.
She didn't say no.
You think almost like you think you're clever, don't you? The Way Too Early mock we already released, and you can check that out on YouTube, Spotify, and subscribe to the McShay Report if you want to read the whole thing. We go into deep and we explain the whole Arch Manning situation to you as well. Why can't I remember? But I wanted to. So in August, I'm going to do the first ever. I was going to say appropriately. Way too early. Appropriately early. Appropriately early. That's what it was. Appropriately.
So the way
early.
too early, appropriately early.
And then the appropriately early. Like, because it's appropriate because we've actually watched tape and we know the players. And I actually feel good about plugging a guy in versus I've seen 4 minutes of a highlight clip where I was watching a different player and I saw him. Or I talked to a scout and they think that. Like that. But it's a good exercise. It's a fun exercise. But that will be part of our off-season work as we get ready for the 2025 college football season and NFL season. All right, we're out of here. I'm trying not to go over an hour. I think I just did it. Later. Must be 21 plus and present in select states. For Kansas, in affiliation with Kansas Star Casino. Or 18 plus and present in D.C. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER or visit rg-help.com. Call 1-888-789-7777 or visit ccpg.org/chat in Connecticut or visit mdgamblinghelp.org in Maryland. Hope is here. Visit gamblinghelplinema.org or call 1-800-327-5050 for 24/7 support in Massachusetts or call 1-877-8-HOPE-NY or text HOPE-NY in New York.